Good morning, everybody. Good morning. It is good to be with you all today. Thank you for being here. I'm sure we'll have a few more joining us here shortly. Um, as soon as their alarms go off, that they got a meeting that they're joining here. I'm Jeremy Cherney, and I'm the founder and president of Tobin Solutions, and I'm just delighted to be with you all today to talk about security, to talk about password managers, and a little bit specific, talk about a specific password manager product called Bitwarden. We don't do a lot of product specific webinars. Well, I guess we do around Microsoft 365 stuff, but other products like this, we don't do a lot of these. But this one is really important if you want to keep your passwords secure. So using something like Bitwarden or another one, you'll get the gist of it after today's webinar. There'll be a demo of that as well, so you'll get to see it live and in action. So what are we trying to protect here, right? There's a little bit of a background on security with all these webinars. And that is, anytime we're thinking about security, we're thinking about three things. How do we protect your confidentiality of your data? How do we protect the integrity of your data? And how do we protect the availability of your data? And any kind of hack or breach or anything you hear about falls into one or more of these types of conditions under the CIA triad. And so the nice thing about passwords is it affects all of them, because if your passwords get loose, uh, any one of those things could be breached, and or all three. So, um, and it's really critical in your security link of trust here. You talk about security as a chain of trust and of the weakest areas where they're going to get in. And passwords are frequently that piece of shoelace. I mean, they're just either they're bad passwords or they don't have multi-factor. They're constantly getting attacked. So we'll talk more about that. But the bottom line is you got to be right 100% of the time with these, and the hackers have to be right just once. And so it's just not even a question of if, but when and how bad these days. You're getting attacked in some way or another every day, whether it's phishing scams, brute force password attacks, people trying to hack at your firewall. It's going on all the time. So it's not if, but how bad. So we're going to talk about what passwords and what any blind spots you might have around protecting your secrets, because that's really what we're here today to talk about is where do you have, we all have these secrets out here, passwords and other things, and how are you protecting them? Are you doing it securely? And, what's happening in the world of protecting those passwords. So we're going to get into that. And we are talking about a product today called Bitwarden, but fundamentally it's part of a process, because security is just not something you buy. While you can buy Bitwarden, using it improperly is not going to help you with your security. So we really look for as best practices. That's we at Tobin, we focus on best practice security. If we're following these best practices, we're going to either try and reduce the risk or prevent, increase our resiliency of getting back up and running and being more secure. The other thing we talk about these security best practices, the password hits on three of them. Enabling multi-factor, that's a challenge, right? We've got people know to use their phone these days for multi-factor, where they get a text to their phone that's an extra code they have to plug in, or they have an app they have to open up and approve whenever they log into something like that. But that's becoming a challenge now, because how do you share that if you need to share that with other people? Managing your passwords with a password manager, that's always been a best practice. And encrypting data to prevent authorized use. And what we mean by that is encrypting your passwords so that unauthorized people can't see and use them. So you're going to get a triple threat today, a triple banger on what's happening in cybersecurity and best practices. I've only got one big statistic for you today on this, and that is this big area of blue that you see. This is a study by the Google Threat Horizons report from 2024, and they call it the initial access vectors of concern. How do they first get in to your systems? And almost half is weak or no credentials, meaning they had no password, bad passwords, didn't have multi-factor, things like that. So exposed passwords. So You want to solve half the potential threats out there. Let's try and get this under control because they're under attack all the time. And I mean all the time. Every site you have, people are constantly trying to hit at it with passwords, whether it's your specific account or other accounts. You're constantly getting phished. So these are kind of the three common ones that are out there. You'll hear used. One is called credential stuffing. And that is where someone on the dark web found a database of breached passwords. Maybe Target had a password database breach or something like that. And so all the accounts for Target are now available with your password and your email address. So then what the hackers do is they go take that list of email addresses and passwords, and then they go start to hit every other website, hoping and banking on the fact and that most of you at one time or another are still reusing passwords. So you still got the same email address, still got the same password for Target. And if it's the same one you use for Amazon, well, guess what? Now your Amazon account is going to be compromised. So the credential stuffing is real. It happens all the time. Brute force password cracking does happen, but it's less common depending on how they have access to it, just because it's just so intensive and takes so much time. Even to guess, unless you're using a very simple password, like the word password, where they can crack in under a second. Uh, if you have a good, long, complex password, it can take thousands of years, even with today's modern computers, to try and crack it. So that doesn't happen as often. Um, and the other one that's happening all the time is phishing. That is where you're getting the emails claiming to be someone you trust, someone that needs something, trying to get you to plug in your ID and password so that they can go use that password for that service or to go try it with other services in a form of credential stuffing. So you're under a constant attack with your passwords, and that's kind of the only thing that's in between you and who you are to these services, right? We talk about passwords, your accounts, it's really you. These are your systems, your credentials, but they're, what's behind it. It's your banking. It's your service that you're paying for. Um, Email account recovery is interesting. Every website you go to and you go to the login page and you put your email address in and you put your password and, oh, didn't remember my password. What can you do? Almost all of them have a button you click, forget password. I forgot my password. And then what happens? It emails you a temporary password. It emails you a link that you can click. Somehow it emails so you can reset your account. And it's very convenient, but it is a huge Achilles heel. Every password you've got can most likely be reset. So if you don't have multi-factor authentication turned on, all of those could be compromised. If someone has access to your email, they have access to resetting any of your passwords. Let that sink in. This is a big area of concern if you've got accounts that aren't protected with multi-factor. Anyone with access to your email. So you want to protect your email account like you protect anything that's really important, and make sure you got multi-factor on your email and all of that. So again, make sure you want to get out there and make sure you've got that multi-factor turned on. This is by and large the state of security. You have a lot of companies out there that are just now starting to add multi-factor. It's amazing after all these years, they're just starting to add it now or require it. But you still get some services out there where it's optional or it's not the default. It may be optional, but it's not default turned on and enabled. So this is where you're using a second factor beyond that password. And this is where you get into the authentication of who you are, right? When you have an account and you're logging into a service, you're trying to prove who you are. Okay, I've got my email address. That's who I can prove who I am. I've got my password. I'm the only one that knows my password. I can prove who I am. Well, as we prove, the passwords, it may not be the only way that someone else could prove and pretend to be you. So we want to add another factor of authentication that will make the password be more effective and more clear that you're you. and that is with these second factors or multi-factor. So the best ones are the ones I've got pictured where you're using either biometrics like the facial recognition or a fingerprint, or a security key where you plug in and literally have to hit the button, or those rotating six-digit authenticator apps like Google Authenticator and Microsoft Authenticator, where you log in and you scan a QR code, and then every time you log in, you have to go find that annoying six-digit code and plug it in. But you want to be getting to make sure that is on everything, because without that, anyone with the password, whether they breached it through you or the service got breached and the password's now exposed on the internet in the dark web somewhere, you want to have that multi-factor. And you want to put it everywhere, not just on your email. You want to put it on your internet registrar, right? The internet registrar is also a really important aspect of who you are as a business in the world on the internet. And if your domain got away from you, that would be a real problem. You want to protect all your cloud apps, your banking apps, logging into your workstation. If you're still using just a simple ID and password to log into your workstation, then again, anyone with that ID and password can log into that workstation. Your remote access, your VPN, your cell phone carrier. Go into your cell phone carrier and make sure you've got multi-factor turned on so that people can't go in and reset your phone account and take away the rest of your multi-factor. So I'm going to get off my high horse on that, but practice it everywhere. It's a great best practice. One of the multi-factors a lot of people use still is the SMS. You know, they get a message, they get something texted to them. You log in, you wait a second, your phone rings, you know, pops, dings, and you've got a message, and it's a six-digit code, and then you go type the six-digit code in. SMS can just not be counted on anymore. It's not secure. It never was from design when it first was introduced, you know, a bazillion years ago, when all we had were the basic, you know, cell phones that we used to have before we had smartphones. This level of security just was not baked in. So it's very easy to get around. It's very easy to obscure. It's very easy to pretend to be. The mobile networks have been breached. You know, they announced this in the news and, you know, several months ago, if you weren't aware of that, that like 8 of the major carriers have been breached by China and others. And the US government literally went out and said, stop using SMS and start only using encrypted texting applications, because you just can't trust the SMS anymore. So encrypted texting applications, that's kind of a different conversation from password managers. But if you're using like iMessage or Google Message and you're talking with another iMessage or Google Message user, those are encrypted. If you're texting using Teams or WhatsApp, those are encrypted. But the SMS, nope. And in fact, it's so bad that Google and others are just simply dropping it as a valid authentication mechanism. They just announced that this week, I think, for Google, that they're going to not allow SMS anymore. You're going to have to do something else. So just consider it dead or dying or on its way out, and start moving away from it as quickly as you can, because it's not secure. So what are you going to use instead? There is something that is out there now that it's been around for a while, and it's getting baked into more and more systems, and you're probably seeing it or seeing it offered sometimes when you log in, and that is something called a pass key. Pass keys are digital credentials that enable passwordless authentication, meaning you don't have to have or remember a password anymore. All you have to is have this digital key. And when you create it, it creates kind of two sides to it. There's the public key and then the private key. The public key goes on the web server or service you're trying to use. So if you log into Gmail and you add a pass key, the public key gets stored with Google. And that's okay, because the public key, it's meant to be public. Anyone that gets that, it's not a problem. The private key, that's what you hold on to. You store that securely on a device that's protected with a PIN code or another password or biometric, you know, your facial or fingerprint. And then you're let in with that key. Now, what's nice about that is Google no longer has your password. So if Google had a password breach, no one would have your password. They couldn't try and reuse it anywhere. If they got your public key, that's fine because there's not a problem with having the public key. And they never have your private key stored, only you do. Now, if you get breached, if your phone gets breached, if something like that, that's then those pass keys are breached. So it's really an amazing form of security that's been out and becoming more mainstream. But one of the things you can't do with passkeys is you can't write them down in an Excel spreadsheet and then store them on somewhere for you and the rest of your team to go look at like you can with a password. So you're going to need a new mechanism if you need a passkey to share among other people. You're going to need another mechanism to share passkeys. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. That is one of our agencies of the government, considered a good use of our tax dollars, where they are really looking at our nation's security. And you can go to their website and get all kinds of security information and specifically what they say about strong passwords. They're promoting it as well. Use strong passwords, at least 16 characters, random, unique, used for only one in one account only. And that gets tough to have things be unique because, people have their little schemes and their little tricks where they think they're making them unique because they add some part of the account domain or something like that. But it's really not that unique, and you're not as clever as you think you are, unfortunately. And people still reuse them in a pinch when you're in line and you got to suddenly download an app to pay for a ticket for something, and you're like, you're not always, you'll use one of your backup passwords that you've used somewhere. We all do it. So it's tough to be perfect that way. And so they recommend getting a good enterprise password manager. Not only it's the only way you're going to be able to keep and store these pass keys and good, strong, unique passwords and be able to get them where you need them on all your different devices and for different people that need them. So we're going to talk more about that. So in summary so far, been a bit of a roller coaster, huh? Still on the roller coaster? Don't check out. This is important stuff. Protect your email. It's a big Achilles heel. Make sure your email is well protected. And if someone else has access to your email, like your assistant, you want to make sure they're also following best practices for the email, that their accounts are protected. Do not reuse passwords. Use strong passwords, enable multi-factor everywhere. Start to migrate to pass keys. We're going to include that in the demo so you can see what the heck I'm talking about with that. And then provide tools for your team to manage their passwords and secrets. There's some good ways out. There's a lot of good password managers out there. We like Bitwarden. We're going to share that about that. But beyond passwords, what else are you seeking? Oh, I think I'm jumping ahead here. Let me grab my poll here. What do I want to do? Let's see. Why don't you guys take a look at that poll out there and what are you trying to protect? Poll showing up for everybody? Oh, there we go. One person's taking the poll. Oh, here come others. Yeah, like a lot of stuff. Yeah, and how are you doing this now, right? Are you doing it with Excel spreadsheets? Are you doing it in a Word doc or a OneNote file or on the back of a index card taped to the wall? Close the poll. You got 5 seconds to stake your claim on the poll. All right. Social security numbers are big. Work accounts are big. Here's the results you can see. It's all over the place, right? But you have a lot of secrets to protect. It's not like when you were young and you just had the key to your house, where you kept your bank passbook that you had to bring into the bank every time you wanted to make a withdrawal or something. Now we've got so much information everywhere. So that's great because you're going to see that a lot of these are things you can protect. There might be some other things on here that you want to protect, other things you want to create, some things that are programmatic. And Bitwarden can store it all, which is really nice. So it can not only store passwords and passphrases, it can store those one-time passwords. So you can actually use it as one of those one-time password generators. So you can have that and store those with it. So you don't have to use a separate app. But that's also nice if you ever want to share a password with somebody that has the one-time password. Um, some of our systems, when you log in, it says you can create recovery codes, so you can store those recovery codes. A lot of times we have our basic IDs and passwords are used for ourselves, but our businesses have these other passwords that are used called service accounts, where like you might have something that synchronizes your server with Microsoft 365 and it synchronizes the accounts so that it makes login easier. So that's just different service account that's used for that. So where is that password stored? If you've got any integration, you're using your CRM or your Salesforce or any of those kinds of applications, and now there's a secret key to integrate Salesforce with your website so that when people go to your website, they can access, your customer portal, but there's a secret key that gets used. Where is that stored? What about critical documents like passports and things like that? Notes. Yeah, I saw some people had alarm system codes. So there's a lot you can store on there, and it's really pretty versatile. It's a real Swiss Army knife of storage, but really it's any kind of account you've got, you can store it there. So we're going to go and do a demo of that and take a look. So a lot of you, when you're um, are purchasing different IT services, from us or from someone else. And then with that, you're getting different things. And part of it, you're getting some kind of a security stack, that you bought yourself or that you're getting through your managed service provider. And um, so you want to have all these kinds of things in one form or another. And password secrets management is definitely the kind of thing you want to have on your stack. Whether you give it to everybody or you just have it for your leadership team, for the people that handle the money, the people that are just in charge of HR, things like that. We really recommend adding something like that. And the one we recommend is called Bitwarden. And I'm going to swap screens here and share different screen. That is swap. So little story about Bitwarden. Again, there's a lot of good password managers out there. As long as you're using one of the top ones, you're probably going to be fine. For us, Bitwarden is one of the top ones. They win awards and uh, competitions. They have what they call zero knowledge, meaning they never have an unencrypted copy of any of your information because all the encryption happens on the client side. So whenever you're adding a password from your computer, the encryption's happening there, and then only the encrypted piece is what's being sent to Bitwarden. So they never have any of that information. It's open source. And if you're familiar with that term, it's computer code that's freely available. So you can actually go look at the code if you want and write your own Bitwarden. If you want to contribute to Bitwarden and add some new feature or function, you can do that. But what I like about that is security researchers can look at the code. So that's kind of a nice feature. The security by obscurity is only goes so far. And if people aren't sharing the code behind it. And what's nice is when cryptography, the science of passwords and secrets and things like that is done properly, even if you know how it's done, you still can't look at it without the key. So, even if you see how the code works, you can't, unless there's a mistake in the code, they still can't get at it. So, and then they've got different third-party audits that have been done on it. It's gotten awards and all that. So you can look at this if you want and all that. I'm not going to go on talking too much more about it. I want to get into the demo, but we definitely recommend it. And when you get it, you can log in and you log into what's called the vault. So I'm going to log into this vault with my demo account here, which is Jeremy Cherney plus Bitwarden at tobinsolutions.com. By the way, little side pro tip. I don't know if you know about that. A lot of email applications, including Microsoft 365, if you just add a plus to the end of the first part of your email address and add anything you want, it'll just automatically create another email address that's an alias that shows up in your inbox. So it's kind of handy for demos and other temporary things, but you can also write rules for things. Anyway, we'll come on that for another day. I've turned off multi-factor authentication on this for now because I don't want to keep messing with that during the demo, but normally you would have that enabled. But whenever you log in, you have what's called your master password. And this is the keys to the kingdom in the world of Bitwarden and all the other password managers, which is your password or passphrase or whatever it is, that you are the only person that knows that. So you want to make sure you save that somewhere, you write that down somewhere. You want to be really clear you know what your master password is because Bitwarden doesn't have it. No one can give it to you once it's in there. So if you forget it, there's some ways to get around it that I'll talk about from an enterprise standpoint. But yeah, there, and we'll get into how you can, other ways you can recover it if you need to, but no one can get it back. So make sure you know it. You get some other login features. If you're using the enterprise single sign-on, you can use that, and then it'll just log you right in with your regular credentials you're using to log in every day. If you have Bitwarden stored on and you're launching it on your phone, because there's a Bitwarden app, so you can use your passwords and passkeys on your phone. You can use that and log in with your device. So, you can click that and then it'll, on your phone, it'll pop and say, do you want to log in? So, but I'm just going to log in with the master password for right now and get in, and we're going to start doing, this is a demo account. This is not my real one. This is going to go away after this webinar. So there's not much in here to worry about, but you can see the first thing you get is what's called the vault. Aptly named place to put your passwords, right? So I've got my vault, and in my vault right now, I have one password set up for USA Today. I just went, did you know USA Today still exists? I didn't know that. I just wanted to create an account somewhere for something that didn't want all kinds of information. So I found USA Today. And so, and I created an email at Jeremy Cherney at +USA Today at tobinsolutions.com as my USA Today ID. And then if I click on this, I can see I've got that. I've got a password, and then I've got what website it is. If I want to copy the password, I can hit copy. If I want to show the password, I can show it. If I want to edit the whole thing and add more notes or other things or change the password, I can go in and do all. If I want to delete it, I can do all that. And then it goes into the trash down here for 30 days. But if I want to use it, I can just log in. So if I take it and then I say, I want to go to USA Today, go to their travel section. That's at least threatening, somewhat. And I go to sign in and I say sign in, and I can put in and I can go back here if I want, and I can say copy the password, and I can put it in, and I can say sign in, and now I'm now logged in. It says, hi, Jeremy, right? So that's a real simple way. It's a very kind of cumbersome way because you're copying and pasting and all of that. And that's, you can do that from every Bitwarden app, so to speak. So whether you're logging into the website at Bitwarden or whether you're using the Windows, there's a Windows app, desktop app if you want, kind of works very similarly, and you can do the same functionality and all your things are synced there. And then there's the Bitwarden app for iPhone and Android as well. And it has kind of the similar functionality where you can copy and paste passwords. And that's not a bad thing to learn how to do because they give you some tools and tricks to kind of automate the filling of all that. But it's sometimes doesn't always work perfectly. Sometimes it's a little glitchy and you end up having to learn how to copy and paste those anyways. So it's not a bad thing to do. Um, I have, so that's the vault. It's very simple. If I want to add another one, so I've got a Gmail account up here, I can go in and I can create a new login and says who's the owner of it. So that's me. And this is a temporary Gmail account I set up for this demo that's going to go after this. Put my password in. Save it. Oh, I'm going to give it a name. Save it. So now I have added another account, right? So you can add them one by one like that. You can import them from other systems. If you've got a password stored somewhere else, you can use those as well. And you can import into the vault to make that easier. So that's real simple. Again, straightforward. If I want to go in here and log in to my fancy pants accounts, I've got that all set up. So that's kind of the basics of it. Now you can do some other stuff, like if you want to go down here to folders and you want to create a new folder, I could call this social media accounts, for example. And then I could go back into that Gmail and edit it and put it into the social media accounts folder. So now when I go down to folders, I can see, so you get some capabilities of organizing. If I really like this Gmail one, I can go in here and edit it. And I can also call it a favorite by hitting the favorites and say save. That's one I use a lot. So when I go under favorites, now I've got that. So kind of a real easy way to go through and manage passwords. And all of this is now stored in the cloud. The encryption and all is happening inside the web browser if there's any of that going on, but it's all stored inside the cloud. So, which is, you may have some questions about that. How secure is Bitwarden if we use their cloud? It's as secure as we know it to be secure based on the audits and the uh, uh, assertions they've made. So, that's kind of what we know about their security. It's what they've said and what's been audited. Which is about as best as we can hope for any kind of cloud application. Another reason we like Bitwarden, though, is if you're really concerned about security, they have what's called a self-hosted option. So you can get pretty much all the same functionality, but you can stand up your own virtual or server and run Bitwarden server on it and use that to and just have all your stuff stored there. So then if Bitwarden Intergalactic is ever breached, then you are not. So it's a nice option. You've got all other kinds of things you can put in here, though, in your vault. You've got credit cards. So I can go in here and put the credit card information, credit card number. I can select the brand, the expiration, put the security code in, put additional notes in, things like that. I can add in other identities. So it could just be people's personal information. Maybe you've got really secure people, social security numbers for your family or friends or coworkers or I don't know what that you might want to put in. Maybe it's your information. You want to put that in there so it's all stored securely. You've also got notes, just general notes. And if you've got SSH keys, if you're familiar with those, that's more of a programming thing. But if you store those, you can also put those in here and have it be an SSH key vault to be used. So kind of simple stuff on that, but that's kind of the real basics. Let's get a little more fancy here. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to log out of, how do I log out here? Sign out of my account. Now what I'm going to use is the browser plugin for Bitwarden. So this is where it starts to get a little more convenient, right? Because you can copy and paste the passwords and stuff, and that's it works just fine, but it's a little more tedious, right? So if I now log in using the browser plugin, so you just download the browser plugin from the particular store that you use, and then we log in. You can see I've got my USA Today password and my Gmail password. So they're both in here now, and now I'm logged in. So now here's where it gets a little more helpful. So if I say sign in, and now I bring this up and I hit my Bitwarden, now, because I'm logged into the browser, it now prompts me and says, oh, we have an account that matches login.usa today that you saved. And you can either go here and click it to look at it and do the same copy and paste if you want, or you can just click this and it fills it in. So that makes it really handy. And you can do that from the phone. You can do that from, the web app or from the desktop app. No, I'm sorry, no, that's incorrect. On the, yeah, use this for your phone on the web browser. If you're going browsing something from your phone, it can also work with apps on phones. So it's kind of smart that way. It knows where you're at on some of that. So anyway, so let's talk a little bit more about this. It's a vault just like the other vault was. So it's got a lot of the same functionality that you can do from the website. You can go into your account settings from here. You can generate new passwords. I can go in, I can add new items here. And when I do it, it all goes into the vault, which is all synced among all my things. So pretty cool, huh? Now let's get into a few of the settings here of what ways you might want to customize your account here. So one is if you go under My Account, you can put in a logo and you can change your email if you want. You can do things like delete your account and purge your vault and stuff. So you got to be really careful with that. This fingerprint phase is not my password, and it's not too much of a problem to have you all see it. And like I said, I'm going to delete these when I'm done anyways, but this is used sometimes where it says, show me your fingerprint. And so you'll need that kind of information. Under security, you can change your master password. You can log in with passkeys, which we talked a little bit about passkeys before, and I'm going to show how to create a passkey to log into Gmail. You want to enable your two-step login. They're multi-factor. I don't have it turned on right now because that's make it easier for the demo, but if you want to be using your Duo, if you have a hardware security token like YubiKey, you can use that using a passkey or using an authenticator app or even using your email. But email is not on by default. That's something you can turn on or turn off, and you may not want to turn it on because like I said, your email is a real Achilles heel. So you may not want to be able to use email as a way, and you want to turn these other ones on and have at least 2 or 3 different options. The Authenticator app is pretty good, and a passkey with both of those, if you had both of those on, would be pretty great security. Or Duo is your Authenticator app. It shows all the devices you've logged in with, so you can get there. And then if you encryption key settings, if you want to geek out about how the different data is encrypted and with all the geeky algorithms and all that kind of stuff, you can click on here. Any of you math heads out there, you can do that. And there's even an API key if you want to use Bitwarden integrate it with other applications to store and retrieve keys. You can do that too. That's another reason we like it. It's very extensible. There's some basic preferences you can set about whether you time out your vault. So there's a difference between lock and log out. Locking your vault is it locks it, but you haven't logged out. And what that means is you can unlock it with just the master password, but you don't necessarily need the second factor of authentication. If you've logged out, then you absolutely need to completely re-authenticate using your master password. And we're getting a little geeky on some of that stuff if you got questions in there. Most people use the default settings and they're just fine with that. It's got domain rules because not all domains are the same anymore. So, it kind of knows that certain websites are the same. Emergency access. This is another important feature of this. And, if you use Bitwarden personally, Definitely recommend this for your family. What emergency access is just that. It gives someone else access to my Bitwarden in the event of an emergency. So I say I add someone and I can put in someone's email address, like, a significant other or child or other, attorney, whoever you want to have access to. And what happens is when there's an emergency, what they can do is they can request access to Bitwarden. So they have to create a Bitwarden account. They don't have to log, they don't have to pay anything for Bitwarden, and they don't have to actually use Bitwarden, but they do need a Bitwarden account when bestow this honor upon them. But then once that happens, let's say they know you're in a coma. Let's say they know you got in a really bad, you just died. I'm sorry about that, but we need to now get into your passwords here because it'll be a lot easier on lives for those that are living. And what can they do? Can they view the passwords or can they actually fully take over the account and put in a new master password? Notice they never get your master password, but they can put a new master password in. And then what is the wait time? 1 day, 2 days, 7 days, 30 days, 90 days. So we actually use this. I got a couple of kids in college. This is kind of nice. So if they ever have an emergency, we have them turn this on. So, if we can't get a hold of them and they're, you know, something wrong, we can get access and find out what's going on and find out they just went somewhere on Snapchat and didn't tell us. So anyway, you got that kind of a thing going on as well. And then once you've got it, then you trust them and that's it. That's how it works. But I definitely recommend doing that. If you get Bitwarden through like Tobin, for example, or you're using an enterprise account, you have an option for what is called free Bitwarden families, which is nice. So if you are getting Bitwarden through your work and you got that through Tobin and they've allowed this perk to be enabled, you get what's called free Bitwarden families. And what that allows you to do is the families plan, which is normally a thing that's $3 a month, you get it for free for up to 6 users. And you put in your own personal email address, not your work address. And then you set that up, and now you now have a Bitwarden account that you can use for your personal stuff. And then if you ever leave the company, the perk goes away. All your accounts are still there. But if you want to keep using some of the family features, you have to then start paying. So pretty nice that way. It's got some reports here that are built in. So it looks at your passwords that you've got. Have any of your passwords exposed in a data breach? Are you reusing passwords? Do you have any weak passwords? So these are just kind of specific to you. And they're kind of handy just to kind of evaluate your password hygiene. You've got some different tools here. So you can create a generator, password generator. So you can generate new passwords of any kind of length you want. You can include special characters. So, get those websites where they make you, set up certain rules. This is nice. Avoid ambiguous characters. So no more wondering if that's an O or a zero in your password because it'll just take those out. You can have it do passphrases instead. Some people like these instead of passwords. They're a little easier to remember, but they're still very secure. Or you can even create usernames. Like, I don't know about you, but for some of my accounts, my ID is not my email address. If they allow an option to not have it be an email address, I'll create a fake username and then store that with my password manager so I know what that fake username is. So it's another way of even being more secure. So those are great tools. You can also get another cool tool in here called Bitwarden Send. So Bitwarden Send lets you create bits of data, either a file or some text. So I can call this demo one and I can send some text and I can say, hello world. And I'm not going to hide the text by default. I'm going to copy the link here and I'm going to say that after 7 days, this is going to get deleted permanently. There's no other expiration date set. They can access it as many times as they want. If I wanted to say that you could only access this like 1 time or 5 times, I could do that. If I want to put a password on it, I can do that. And I can put any notes I want, and I can obscure my email if I want. What does all this mean? Well, when I say save this, and I go to, I now have a link to what I just created in that text file. So if I go and open up a new page here on my web browser and paste that link that I got, you can see it created a little web page for me at Bitwarden Vault with Hello World. And now I can copy that value and it says member Jeremy Cherney sent that. So after a while, this would disappear based on the rules I set. If I use that feature to obscure my email, it wouldn't say it came from Jeremy. It would just say it came from nobody else. And if I told it to hide the text by default, then you'd have to click a button to show it. So they can't just automatically, when they open it, they see it. So I could email that link to somebody. I could text this link to somebody. So if you have something secure to send, it's kind of a nice way to do it. And I can just click here and I can copy the link. And here's when it's going to get deleted on March 5th. It's going to be gone. You can also send a file if you want. So if you had a file up to 500 megabytes, if you had something secure to send, you could do it the same way. So anyone with that link can get at that page. Again, if you want to secure it, then add some password that you can share. Either, have it generate a password that you're going to share separately with somebody or some other password that you're going to tell somebody. It's kind of a handy way. So you get that built in as part of Bitwarden. So that's kind of nice. You get all those features with the basic Bitwarden account. But let's talk about what happens when you're at a corporate setting. Okay, because keeping passwords for yourself is great. That's not too much of a challenge, when you're using an application like Bitwarden. But how do we securely manage the Bitwarden accounts for our enterprise, right? Because these are still accounts now that we have to maintain, just like we help maintain your Microsoft 365 accounts and your other cloud accounts. We help manage those identities. So how do we manage the identities and the data associated with it for your Bitwarden users? And that's where it comes into, you create what's called an organization. So I'm logged in under an organization. I have what are admin privileges. So now at the bottom, I'm no longer looking at my password manager. For me, I'm now looking at admin console for, you can see it up here, it's a different color and it says admin console. And I'm looking at it for my org, which is what I called my org. You can call it anything you want. You could call it Tobin Solutions. You can call it your company name, anything you want. I just called it my org. And that becomes like your file server for storing passwords, right? You're kind of familiar with your file server, at least back in the old days. You'd have a document that was either on your desktop or you would put it out to a shared drive somewhere where other people could access with right privileges that document. And it's kind of the same way with passwords. So you have your MyOrg as your server, and now you can create collections. So you get what's called a default collection or an unassigned item, and you can add new passwords to this collection. So if I go in here and I'm going to create a new one, just for example, under default, and I'm going to create a new password and I'll call this demo 2. It doesn't really make a difference because I'm not going to use this for anything, but I'll call it Jeremy. I'm going to have it generate a password for me. So I'm going to use that password and I'm going to save that. So now in this collection, I now have this demo 2 password. If I go back to my password manager and I'm looking at just my vault, I clicked my vault, I can see the 2 items I have, but I also have access to my org over here. So if I click on my org, I can now see that demo 2 password that I just created in that shared organization. I can go down here and see the different collections that I have access to. So it's kind of another cut of it. If it's a password that I use a lot, I can go into it and so it's a favorite and it'll show up in my favorites, not for everybody, but it'll just be in my favorites under my org. If I click my vault or if I say everything, I can see all my favorites together. So this was a favorite from my vault. You can see it's under me as the owner. And here's the other password under my org that's using. So pretty cool so far, huh? You get to do that. So Now, what use would this be if we didn't have another member out here with which to work with and share passwords with? So I have another account out here that I create, another temporary account that's going to be gone after this. So I'm going to go into Bitwarden again. And I'm going to log in. And this time I'm going to log in with this other account I created. And so now I'm logged in. So if I hover over this, you can see this is that plus BW2 account and it's green. I've got this one over here that's blue. And if I hover over it, you can see it's the plus Bitwarden uh, email address. So you can see now I've got both those groups. Now, what about this group? If I click on it, what role do they have now? Now you can start getting into some of the security of this where you want to, again, make sure you're following best practices and doing what in the expected results that you intend. So what kind of role is this new person? Are they just a regular user where they can access and add items to any assigned collections? Collections, or you can groups of passwords in the organization, and you can create different security permissions for different collections. So you could create a collection called social media accounts, and that collection is just shared with the marketing team. You could create another collection called finance, and that's just shared with the finance team. You can make them an admin where they can manage everything in the system, or you make an owner where they can not only manage it, they can like delete the account, they're in charge of billing and all that, or you can create some custom stuff. I can say what groups do they belong to. So you can manage by user, but in the world of security, sometimes it's easier to create a group. So we create a group called like social media and then assign them to that. We don't have one created for that, but I could do that. And then what collections do they have access to? And what can they do? Can they just view items? Can they view items and but the passwords are hidden? Can they edit items? Can they edit items but hidden passwords are hidden, or can they manage the collection? And then you pick the collection that they can do. So if I go in and set that and say they can edit items in there, and I'll go ahead and save that. So now under this account, and I go under my org. Whoop, where's that? Let's see. One sec. Did I do that correctly? But under my org, right one, password manager, going in my org. So I do have a demo 2 in there. And it's in the default collection. And oh, review items. I don't know what I put in there. Maybe that works here. So put that in. They should have access to that. Oh, that is not working. What's going on here? Am I on the right account? Demo. Missing something obvious here. Hmm. The access here. So that has access to it. They should be able to go in and do that. Mouse was, of course, working yesterday in the demo. Maybe I need to log out and log back in. Let's try that. Just need to log on and log back in. So you can see, so I've got my vault, and this is under the BW2 account. So I can go and create new passwords that are unique to the BW2 account. But now I have the my org here as well. So now I can see the passwords that have been shared with me because I'm in that, I have access to that default collection. So I can go in here and can change that if I want to edit it. Call it 222, save it. Once everything syncs up, eventually that'll change and be 2222. Does have to sync to the cloud and back and forth. Sometimes that takes a sec for it to show up that way. Yeah, you can see demo 222. So that's great, right? So now we have a way of sharing passwords with people. And if we have authenticator codes, I go in and edit that, and you get one of those QR codes on the screen to log into. A lot of times, if you can't scan the QR code, it says show the secret key, and you copy that secret key and you put it into the authenticator key here. And now you get your 6-digit rolling code there. So let's take a look at that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to here, and I'm going to go back to my org. I'm sorry, the password manager. Go back to my vault, go back to my Gmail account, and I'm going to assign it to a collection. So I'm going to take it out of my personal vault, and I'm going to put it into my org, and I'm going to put it in that default collection, because that's maybe an email account that I need multiple people to be able to sign up and use. So you do take it out of your account, but just like a file you might have on your desktop, as long as you're the owner and still have access to it, you've got that password, but you are moving it from one vault to another. You're moving it from your own vault to the org vault. And go back here, let's see, that'll show up here in a second. There it is. So I got the Gmail here. Now I'm gonna go back into my Fancy Pants Gmail account. Whoa, we are way on behind on time here. Let's see. I'm going to do two things. So I'm going to go into the security here. The first thing I'm going to say is do the authenticator type password. So I bring that up, I put my password in. If I say set up authenticator, it brings up this QR code. So if I say I can't scan it, I'll click that, and it says in the Google Authenticator, oh, but this is using the Google Authenticator app. I got to do a different one. I'm going to do the pass key here instead. Talked about pass keys before. So pass keys are those digital bits of information you create. So I'm going to go into here and I'm going to say create a new pass key. And when I do it, it pops up Bitwarden because it knows I'm trying to do that. And I'm going to save that pass key. And now you can see I have a pass key here. So if I log out of my Gmail and I log in now, remember I do have a password for this, but if I click this, it says, wait, use your pass key to confirm it's really you. So now I click continue and it brings up Bitwarden and it says, yep, that is me. And then it logs me in. So it's way more convenient than passwords, but you need a place, those, when you store those pass keys with your accounts in Bitwarden, it'll synchronize those between your devices. And also when you share them, it can be part of the shared login. So you kind of almost need a system once you're using a service that no longer allows passwords. You're almost going to need a system like Bitwarden to be able to share these in the future with people because you can't put them into a spreadsheet anymore. So that is the demo. Thank you very much. I'll stick around for any questions. If you've got questions about Bitwarden or about how your own password manager works, there's a lot of similarities in terms of how you want to set things up. The enterprise features make it a lot easier to use and manage and protect all the accounts the same way, if you want to hear about those. And Yes, that's someone just asking a question. If you walk away from your browser extension that and you don't lock it, someone can get access to your stuff. And yep, that is 100% true. So lock your computer when you walk away or set a timeout on it. Lock your passwords before you leave. That's the thing. You're like your keys, like your passwords, you're in control of leaving. If you leave a key under the doormat and someone knows it's there, they're going to get in. So you got to protect that key and put it in a lockbox and hang it from your doorknob instead and make sure it's locked before you leave. Great question. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Let's see. How is this more secure in a shared drive than only certain people? That's a good question, Rebecca. How is it more secure? It the security of it is you've got it restricted to users, which is good. But what happens if that uh, password, like if your system is ever exfiltrated, like you got ransomware and someone grabbed that file, now it's not just in that folder that only people have access to. Now the ransomware people have access to it. Now, if you password protect that file, that'll be pretty good. The ransomware people probably won't be able to get into it easily. But again, with these pass keys, which you're going to be forced to one way or another pretty soon, I think, and it is really good security. If you're interested in better security, it's better than passwords because of how they work. Then, that's one way it'd be more secure. Thanks for the question. Great question. Any other questions? Thanks for the extra time. Hope you all have a great day. It's a little gray and here in Wisconsin, but it's warmed up a little bit, so that's not too bad from how it was. Hope you're all safe and keep your accounts and passwords safe. And we'll talk to you the next time. Thanks so much. Oh, also look for a, webinar survey and let me know how we did. This is new material. Let me know how it went.